My name is Isabella Valvano, and the topic that I decided to base my media assignment on is the discrimination of race and class displayed in schools. When researching this topic, I came across a TED Talk done by Candace Sumner entitled How American Public Schools Keep Kids in Poverty. Candace Sumner is an equity advocate and is an educator for the Boston Public Schools. The topic discussed in this TED Talk is how the American public school system keeps poor kids, which are mostly those of lower socioeconomic background or those of an ethnic background, in poverty, and rich suburban, mainly white students out of poverty. This TED Talk explains the inequalities expressed in the public school system, as the lower class schools do not have access to the same materials and resources as the upper class schools, which results in a difference in the quality of education that these students are receiving. I chose a specific talk as I believe it embodies the topic of discrimination found in schools regarding one's race and social status, which was the main topic of Lecture 4 of the second term of this course. When Dr. Dyer presented this lecture, I found myself very intrigued in the topic as I could not believe the level of this discrimination that was still prominent in today's society. This TED Talk is important as it explains the need for equal education for all the unfairness that many lower class students are facing today. I believe this is a very necessary topic that has been an issue for too long and must be fixed now, as every student should have the right to a good quality education. The first central idea discussed in this talk is the struggles one must go through in order to receive the proper education that they deserve. In her talk, Sumner shares with the audience her own struggles she faced as a Black student attending a suburban, primarily white school. She explains that the closest suburban school was located an hour away from her home. Every morning, Sumner revealed that she would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to catch the bus that took her an hour away just to receive a better education and be at school on time. At a young age, she thought that everybody had the same opportunity as her and attended schools with the same available resources. However, as she got older, she explains that she began to question why her friends in her neighborhood were not learning the same material as she was. She felt as though she didn't belong and wasn't supposed to have the opportunities that she did. Being in a predominantly white school, she simply did not feel right or as though she fit in or was supposed to have these opportunities. She explains why there is a decrease in learning development in these lower class students and the presence of the achievement gap in the school system. Generally, when a student does not have access to basic educational supplies such as books, notebooks, binders, etc., as their family may not be able to afford them, the school that they attend would usually have extra supplies that the student can utilize. However, due to the fact that the lower class schools do not have the same funding as suburban schools, the educational institution is unable to provide these students with the supplies that they need in order to help them learn. Upper class schools have access to more than just these basic educational needs, such as theaters for plays, air conditioning, a good cafeteria, etc., as they have the funding available to purchase these accessories. Not having access to basic resources needed to improve one's learning ability causes students' educational development to plummet as they do not have the resources available to help them in their studies. As discussed in the TED Talk, this leads to an increase in the achievement gap. Sumner explains that her students have the potential and the drive to succeed in school, but they do not have the means to do so. Not having access to the resources needed limits the students and their learning abilities, which is why these lower class students learn at a slower pace than the upper class students, and it explains why the achievement gap is there. Although Black and lower class students are actually in a school, they do not have access to the same resources and opportunities that most white and more well-off students have. If everyone was given the same opportunities and an equal education, there would be no achievement gap in place. This talk relates to our Child and Youth 1F90 course as it discusses the topics displayed in the Week 4 lecture of this term. The message of this TED Talk relates to the myth of meritocracy that Dr. Dyer addressed in this Week 4 lecture. The myth of meritocracy is the misconception that a person's hard work and merits will allow them to rise up the social ladder. As seen in this TED Talk, this is not always true. No matter how hard these students of the lower class work, they will be unable to reach the same level or have the same opportunities that upper class students will have. They may have the mindset in place, but without the support or resources, it makes it next to impossible for them to do so. This is completely unfair to the students, as one's quality of education should not be determined by their background. Sumner also brings light to the Brown v. Board case of 1954, as well as she lists many more court cases like this one that have happened since that case, one being as recent as 2006. This TED Talk has made me take a deeper look into the school system, as we can sometimes be blinded about what is happening in another classroom, or let alone another school. As students and children, we believe that every child is like us and has the same opportunities as we do. However, this is not always true. It has taught me to truly be grateful for the educational opportunities that I have had in the past and still have to this day, even on those days when school feels like a chore. This TED Talk is relevant as it brings light to the inequalities many students face that we may not think are there. It is important for everyone to understand that what we may take for granted may be someone else's dream.